Well, look at this, my friends. SmackDown, talking about it on a Friday, as it should be in the United Kingdom. Never works like that, which I don't mind, of course. But WWE are in Perth, Australia for their Crown Jewel show. I have just watched SmackDown on Netflix, which means some of you may not have seen it, although you can use nordvpn.com/Simon Miller and get yourself a very good deal on a NordVPN subscription. And then, of course, you could watch it on Netflix too. But I never said that. Shouldn't have said that. I definitely didn't say that. But the point is this. Let's get into SmackDown, which actually was a damn good show. I want to talk about the Aleister Black, Damian Priest street fight because, man, I tell you the best thing about this entire SmackDown. Everything felt like it had a purpose. Everything felt like it was the beginning of a new story. People felt like they had purpose. People felt they had focus. And it got me very excited about what we could do going forward, especially because I don't mean this in a bad way, but in terms of super duper whooper star power, I guess Cody Rhodes was the only dude on it, you know, who WWE sees in the top level. Like Seth Rollins didn't really appear on this show. Ties into the pre-show where he walked away, dun, 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 from the Vision and Paul Heyman, which I guess is going to be a tease. It will be a ruse before the pay-per-view PLE. But like Randy Orton wasn't on this. Again, he could pop up at Crown Jewel as well. We do not know. But Cody was sort of the draw on the crown. So to give Aleister Black and Damian Priest the leeway, is that the right word, to actually have a proper main event, which was a last man standing match, not only was it fantastic, but I don't know, it kind of feels like we have picked a new direction and Zelina Vega is going to be with Aleister Black, which makes sense because they're married in real life. But I just found it interesting because Aleister Black has kind of been a bit directionless, so has Damian Priest, which is why I like this feud and why I wanted to be on the PLE. But now we've made a very specific turn. I think you could say that Aleister Black is now a proper heel. Am I allowed to say that? I do not know. And Zelina Vega is going to be his manager, or at least they're going to have a relationship on screen, which is good because Zelina Vega was doing nothing, and Zelina Vega has something to offer, and therefore she should be put in a position. Hopefully she still wrestles and stuff, but it makes them an act. And I think right now something that people do like in professional wrestling is an act. And I guess it's like the Becky Lynch, Seth Rollins stuff. It didn't necessarily help them. It did for that feud. But because you knew they had real life chemistry, they were able to translate that on screen. We've seen Zelina Vega do it with Andrade too, obviously way back in the day. They weren't linked romantically, of course. She was married to Aleister Black then, but there's something to it, especially coming out of the Damian Priest feud, and we use fire. Don't often see fire on a WWE show. It's a bit sad for the tribalists out there that have been yelling at me all week going, oh, WWE would never use fire. Literally have DMs with people saying, Simon, you should die, and you shouldn't like Darby Allin using fire. Well, I'm glad they did this because I can prove to you that there's no tribalism on this show. I love WWE using it as well. Like, we'd already seen this crazy meteora through some of the still steps, people being thrown out of the announce table, chairs, where they brawled through the crowd. Again, it's a last man standing match. And Zelina Vega appears from nowhere, as people want to do in all of professional wrestling. She kind of makes Damian Priest beg off, but not really. He still was ready to go raw, but I guess it allowed Aleister Black to take his med pack. And then, yeah, he did the fireball into the face. Admittedly, that's not as crazy as a flamethrower, but fire is fire. You're going to mess with fire? Of course you're not. Reminded me of Halloween Havoc 1998. Hulk Hogan versus the Ultimate Warrior, the worst match of all time, or at least one of. But Aleister Black didn't burn his face. He burnt Damian Priest's face, and then Black masked him off the platform, through the table below. It was awesome. And sure, there was sort of a gap between the fire and the kick, but it's fire. And I would rather wrestlers take their time and not hurt themselves. But because this was the main event, going back to my original point, and because we had an angle, and because we had something stunty, I suppose, for lack of a better term, not only did it justify Damian Priest staying down for a 10, there's always some sort of protection where you're not pinned. I don't know why that works in sports entertainment, but it does. And now Aleister Black, well, at first, Zelina Vega looked quite concerned, and then she kind of turned to raw. Her face. So maybe she got over it quite fast. But at first, again, she was begging off, like I say, no, Damien, please don't do it. And then she helped her hubbo. I hate saying the fact I said hubbo. Somebody should push me off a cliff. Much like he pushed Damian Priest off this platform. But it felt like a big deal. It felt like a big main event. I presume that Damian Priest has to get a friend. I have no idea who that could be. It could be Lola Vice. Is that true? I think that's a real-life rumor that they're dating too. And Lola Vice is ready to be brought up. And she didn't win the NXT title, did she, the other day? I can't remember. I've watched too much wrestling this week and it's burnt my brain. But it was good. And again, it felt like, right, we're heading in a very specific direction, which, at least for my money, was the same with the rest of the show. Especially with the MFTs. My gosh. For starters, they're dressing up the Gorillas of Destiny, which, why didn't we do that before? Tama Tonga returned on the show, which I predicted last week. I mean, it was the easiest prediction anyway, but we take our wins where we can get. I couldn't even believe that Sami Zayn versus Shinsuke Nakamura was not good, because they're two, really, in terms of the modern day, they're two of the best wrestlers there is. But obviously Shinsuke Nakamura's WWE run has been very hit and miss, but be it because of the nostalgia of the 2016 NXT match, be it because, they decided, hell man, let's go out there and put on a banger. It was a really fun match. Like, it was really, really good. And if you are watching this before SmackDown goes live, I would tell you to go and watch this match. And usually, if it ends in the US challenge ending in a non-finish, it'd be like, ugh. But no, not here, not at all. Because, Shinsuke was about to hit the second Kinshasa. Sami Zayn had got his foot on the ropes. I think I'm getting that right. And then the MFTs appeared. Well, no, Tama Tonga appeared first, reveals himself. Ta-da, I'm back. Which made all the sense in the world given Solo Sikoa's vignettes. And then all of them sort of, came together like the group, but they're all wearing the face paint apart from Solo. They beat the absolute crap out of these two, and it ends with Solo in the middle around these four guys, because Tala Tonga was there, I'm the tallest Tonga, and JC Mateo and Tangaloa. It looked awesome, and sometimes in wrestling, the aesthetic is the most important part, but they look like badasses, and the fact they actually stopped an awesome match from happening, and it was the first open challenge that has stopped this way, it did make them feel like dickheads, which also tied into the next bit. Because the Street Profits got beaten by the Wyatt Six after a lot of shenanigans. Nikki Cross was being shenanigan-y, and then B-Fab was being shenanigan-y. So while they did get defeated, and they should probably go in separate directions now, as WWE has been teasing, they too were put in the prediction bubble of love, which is good, right? If you're going to push them, I suppose you want to do that. And also, I assume the Wyatts are sort of meant to be heels. I don't know. But a lot of putting people's feet on ropes. But after this, and it really justifies all the videos we've now done for the big reset for the MFTs. Well, for stars, let's not forget they went after Sami Zayn, who is the US champion. So thank Flubblestick, so I didn't forget about that, which was my worry. Look at Jacob for 2, although he was saved here as well. But now they're going after the tag team titles as well. If you have 5 people in your group, you should be going after championships. So the Wyatt Six versus the MFTs, and you need to go and see the face-off here. And the MFTs backed off after Nikki Cross was like, why order? She turned into Scrappy-Doo. But I like that too. She's meant to be spooky-wooky, so sell the spooky-wookiness. There was just something about all this, be it the presentation, the way they all came across, all sold like big deals, nobody really backing down. And listen, I'm a Solo Sikoa fan. We talked about it before. Solo going for the US title, and well, it could be the Gorillas of Destiny, I suppose. They should go for all the belts. Like, they really, really should. Not the world title. That seems to be where the disparity is between him and Jacob for 2. What other belts could they go for? But they should. So let's say the tag team is the Gorillas of Destiny. They should go after the tag team titles. So that allows JC Mateo and Tala Tonga to do something. I don't know. But the point is, let's make sure we feature all of them, which is the same for the Wyatt Six. Again, very visual heavy thing. The same with Sami Zayn being totally destroyed by Solo. But I liked it. And now they're back on TV. We've justified all the videos because they've come back with a vengeance. They're not being idiots. I guess we're selling them a little bit more serious, because Solo Sikoa was quite funny before he went away. I don't want that to be removed entirely, because I do think when he lights up his personality, there's something to it. But hopefully, if you've seen it, or when you do see it, I don't know, maybe this is just me. Maybe I just love watching it at 1 p.m. on a Friday afternoon. I was like, yeah, go Australia. But it just worked for me. And hopefully it means the tag team titles won't vanish into dust either, which has happened a lot. And it kind of has happened with the women's championships as well. So they did have a backstage skit here with Charlotte and Alexa Bliss. I presume they filmed that before they went. It's just the Sol Kazaria thing. It was fine. Charlotte and Alexa now feel like these two have proven themselves, not sure what they've done. And they're going to do the match. I could have this more on my television. I'm a big fan of the women's tag team titles. I think most of the time whoever holds those championships actually does a really good job, but the problem is they're not really given the TV time or the opportunities to see it through. But this was still something, and it kind of feels like Sol Ruka and Zarya on the main roster. I mean, not really, because this is the good thing about unifying the tag team belts. There's also a massive sign during that Street Profits match that said, unify the tag team belts. I can't remember if it said men's or not. I totally agree with that. And it does allow for this as well. You can get away with saying, oh, Sol Ruka and Zarya haven't actually been called up. They're just hanging out on the main roster for now because the women's titles are part of NXT too. Maybe we should do that on NXT. I guess you don't really need to with the TNA stuff. But that was fine. It was just a backstage skit, but it did what it did. But at least the belts were featured on the show. That's me pulling at straws a little bit. I can't remember the exact order this went in. But again, big angle for the US title. Big angle for the men's tag team titles, which do need help, especially on Raw. And at least somewhat of an angle for the women's championships. And because I don't believe any of these people will be featured on the pay-per-view, use the SmackDown out in Australia to sell all of it. But it was good. And it felt like something was going to go down. I don't know how I didn't know this now. I guess I just wasn't paying attention. But after the fact, I saw as well, apparently a lot of people use their old themes tonight, or there's been a shift with people going back to old themes. I don't know what I missed. I wasn't paying attention to entrances, even though I was. Maybe my nostalgic brain kicked in. I didn't even realize. But there was also another rumor that said there is a new creative team on board for SmackDown, still being headed up by Road Dogg, but they're just going to sort of spice things up a little bit. And off the back of this, I would say it felt fresher than it has done in ages. And we took all these people that have kind of been lost in the middle of the card, not Sami Zayn, who's been carrying SmackDown for the last few weeks. But again, we gave them all impetus. And that's all I need, because now I can be excited for next week. It was a good use of the time, and it was a good use of talent. And of course, the whole thing, well, not to kick off with Cody Rhodes, but there was a show-long story, I suppose. Not really, but we did some hints. Because Cody Rhodes came out and said, I'm the man to beat Seth Rollins. I always beat Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins can't beat me. The crowd then started to chant wanker. If you know, you know. If you don't know, don't worry about it. Cody then joked with Michael Cole, or you should repeat that. And a microphone eventually got to Wade Barrett, and he would say it. He goes, who thinks you're a wanker, Seth Rollins? This may as well have just have been the hoo-ha-ha, Cody Rhodes is going to win the Crown Jewel Championship, which was there. Whether it was the real one or the replica one, but some people thought it would be a ring this year. Nope, that belt is back. And it was just Cody Rhodes being the best babyface ever, because he's going to lose. Again, Seth Rollins walked out during that pre-shows we talked about. At least I think he's going to lose. But then after this, he bumps into Jacob Fatu, who says, after Crown Jewel, I'm coming after that belt, which is interesting. Nick Aldis then wanted to have a chat with Jacob Fatu, so Drew McIntyre killed him. And then later on, Drew McIntyre wanted to chat with Nick Aldis, so Jacob Fatu killed him. Now, this was smart, because we now told you eventually Jacob Fatu is going to go for that belt, but not now. He's got to deal with a Scottish Warrior first, probably something at Survivor Series, maybe a one-on-one, or maybe they get thrown into the Survivor Series teams. But we've quite clearly elevated Jacob Fatu, which does justify why he's not going after the US title, also a bit nuts. We just meant to forget about that. Men in Black, flashy thingy, I'll pretend I don't know what happened there. But Drew McIntyre is a typically top star, so working with Jacob Fatu is always going to elevate him, like I say. And also, they both need to win, so that's where the jeopardy comes in as well. And there's probably going to be some shenanigans with this, because WWE enjoys it. And actually, not having Seth on the show was smart. That actually did make sense, because if you have a hissy fit on the pre-show and you kind of make out there's some issues there, you don't need to be on. Your silence speaks louder than words. And WWE did hammer on the fact that he's not here. Where's he gone? What's he going to do? He has to win. I mean, make sure you check out my Crown Jewel predictions. But he has to win. It's going to be crazy if he doesn't win. But simple but effective, I will go with this. I kind of felt like they'd built it already with the vignettes and all the other promos that we had done. I mean, I'm ready for that match. And that's all the build needs to be. Do I want to see it? Am I kind of 100% sure of who's going to win? No, but do I have an idea? Yes. So they've done a really good job with it. I don't like champion versus champion matches unless we're doing it for a reason. I don't like any kind of stipulation that's built on, well, it's that time of year, we better do it, because I think you're then booking for an event rather than booking for the story. But this certainly worked. I certainly enjoyed it. And again, I think Seth Rollins is going to win. Put a gun to my head, I'd tell you there's no need. I'm not 100% sure. We also got the tag team. Can they coexist match between Stephanie Vaquer and Tiffany Stratton? Yes. Yes, they can. I don't think they fell out at all, which is very interesting. The Secret Service had tried to recruit Stephanie earlier as well, and Tiffany had said no. Tiffany was mega over here, so I don't know. I still think she should go back to her heel tendencies. What do I know? I mean, ultimately, they were taking on Julia and Kiana James. You knew Kiana was going to take the pin. Julia was booked to be a badass. Like, she was hitting her, what's it called? Hour of a Dirty Driver, whatever. And that had the win. But of course, people were breaking it up and more feet were being put on ropes. Now, that didn't happen in this match, did it? It happened in 2 matches. And now, did it? I think so. I'm getting confused. The point is, we made it very clear that Julia could have won. And it was Kiana James that kind of ruined her. Still hope that we do something with that Women's US Championship. But listen, it was a fine tag team match. Stephanie Vaquer was massively over when she was doing the Devil's Kiss. Tiffany Stratton got massively over when she did the PME to Kiana James for the 1-2-3. And then they held the titles up in each other's faces, like Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar did back in 2018, or whatever the flub it was. At least they didn't do the tug of war. This one doesn't feel like it's been built as, I want to say as well. It lacks the intensity that Cody versus Seth has. I suppose because they're 2 baby faces. I mean, Tiffany Stratton did actually say to Stephanie, after tonight, I will beat your ass at the pay-per-view. I still think Stephanie should win and that Tiffany Stratton should get that edge back. Not Adam Copeland, he went to AEW. But it was fine. There was nothing wrong with it. I don't particularly like the partnership of Kiana James and Julia, not because of them, but because they really do feel directionless. Now, what the flub does Julia do now? I would presume she's going to go after Tiffany Stratton's belt when Stephanie Vaquer goes back to Raw. But then that US title then is just in a horrible no man's land place. I'm fine with Julia being in the main event of the women's division on SmackDown, but get rid of that belt first. You could have done a whole program rather than do all of this. You could have had Stephanie and Tiffany promoed off against each other, and then people go, but they can't promo. Well, they're not going to get any better unless they get any time in the ring. To get this mad about it. It's just professional wrestling. It's the least important of the most important things. Switch those around. I got it wrong. Good SmackDown, though. I liked it. I had a good time. You're absolutely allowed to say, Simon, that's only because you watched it at 1 p.m. UK time. But listen, man, context is massively important, which is why sometimes you can watch one show and it'll be the best thing ever, and you watch another show the next day and the worst thing ever because you got up late, you had a bad day, you haven't eaten your carbohydrates, whatever it would be. If you have watched me because you wanted a push in the right direction, there are absolutely elements of this you should watch. Things to miss. I mean, not really. I think it was a well put together show, and like my big takeaway, again, repeating what I said, not major stars, but big stars, and now we put them back into programs, and the MFTs are sort of the biggest badasses ever, so I'm right aboard that train. Excited to see what we can do. Now, of course, please do drop me a comment below and let me know what you thought about SmackDown. Or maybe you haven't seen SmackDown. You can write, you spoiled it for me, Simon. I tried to put up the most harmless thumbnail ever. I try, right? Sometimes it's not easy, but I did my best. And like the video, share the video, subscribe, interact. Make sure you go to GorillaMind.com/Simon. Just go to Simon, get 10% off. There's more now on a massive bundle. I think it's 25% off. It's such a good bundle. I love it. Absolutely awesome. Patreon.com/Simon316 to watch along. It's only $5. A bunch going up there now. Simon316 to come yell at me on social media. Simon on TikTok. Come get a cameo at Simon Miller, my favorite thing to do. Otherwise, Pro Wrestling Tees and BigCartel.com. I guess I'll see you tomorrow for Crown Jewel. No idea when I get that video done because I'm wrestling this weekend. So the only problem with the time difference is my routine gets thrown out the window. But it's pretty fun. And WWE and all professional wrestlers should do more of this. Take care, my friends. See you soon.